And this is all
They shot 2 border agents because of this. That's just the least of it. Eric Holder got caught lying.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello, folks. Anyway, Peace, my co-host here.
Good evening.
And Jack Blood. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Pokey. Great that you're still on after all these years. I love watching the show.
Well, thank you, sir. I was going to mention Jack Blood is one of a long-time activist. Almost back all the way to Waco, huh?
Pretty much. About 10 years now, solid every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's been Deadline Live info. It's not bad stuff there. Go on, check it out, folks. We won't always agree on everything, but I know tonight this Operation Fast and Furious. What's the matter? Oh, okay. This Operation Fast and Furious just infuriates me. We were just talking about it, and the 2 cops have been killed here. But I have a lot of pictures of like dead kids and things in Mexico.
Have you been talking about Fast and Furious on your show so people know what it is?
I've had it on the website, but not really a lot. I've talked about it a lot.
This should really infuriate your viewers and people here in Texas, all over the country. You know, we've been told that they got to shut down our gun shows and monitor our gun shows and stop the free trade of firearms in Texas. We have some of the greatest laws in the country for gun ownership in Texas. But they're trying to, encroach in on this because our guns could end up in the hands of these Mexican drug cartels. What did we find out now here about 6-8 months ago? That the government themselves, the BATFE, the FBI, and the DEA were sending their own guns right down into Mexico, landing in the hands of these drug cartels. And this is a typical sting operation, Pokey. They do this in order to catch the terrorists. They call them straw buys. But what we've seen is that they were just doing direct sales to the drug cartels. And recently, a Los Zetas member was captured, and he said so much that they purchased guns from the U.S. government.
Even the government was selling them.
This started in 2009 under the Obama administration. They actually used stimulus money that they robbed from us to buy these guns and give them to these trained killers down across our border. And Janet Napolitano of Homeland Security comes out and says, 6 months ago, there is no violence on the border. There's nothing going on down there. So this is really the ultimate in hypocrisy. It's a page out of the book of P2OG, which they use in Iraq, the Salvador option, or people remember back in the day, the Operation Gladio, where they pretend they're terrorists, where they aid and help and train the terrorists in order to catch the terrorists. Back in 1993, Pokey, we remember the World Trade Center bombings. A lot of people don't know is that my mic doesn't work. I already burned it out. I'm so loud. People can probably hear me outside.
Yeah, they can probably hear you anyway.
And down the street.
Oh, this is the good one. That's the bad one.
Let's try this one. So let's go back to 1993, the World Trade Center bombing.
Well, now we're going into false flag stuff. We're trying to make the point
of.
It
was an FBI sting operation where they gave the bombs to these
alleged informant,
terrorists.
The FBI informant.
That's
the first,
right.
What he's talking about, the first World Trade Center bombing. You remember they drove into the. It was an FBI informant who had set this thing up, and he called him up and says, "Hey man, this guy's going to go down. He's going to blow it up." And then nobody did anything, and that was the first bombing. But that's getting off of Fast and Furious.
Well, it's the same thing. So to say that this is unprecedented would be not correct. This is precedented. This happens all the time. It happened in Iran-Contra, which we might talk about in a little bit with my friend Cele Castillo, who's a war hero, who's in jail for doing what? Selling guns to an informant when, again, our government has sold thousands of guns right to these cartels to be used against us and the citizens of Mexico, which have been effectively disarmed, as many people know.
Well, it infuriated me so much because for a while, I'm really big into like Stratfor, and Sylvia Longmire does a site I always watch, and she was pointing out how maybe it is time for some kind of gun control because they're not going to stop you from buying multiple long-barrel magazine-fed weapons. They're just going to report it. And so I was actually beginning to fall apart until this happened. I was thinking that, they're not going to stop me from buying. They're just going to call the cops when I do. What's the big deal? And she still kind of got a point. What's the big deal? Say you go in there and I buy 5 AK-47s. They're not going to stop me from buying. They're just going to tell the cops when I do.
But what we're talking about here now is a thought crime, because you haven't actually sold those guns to terrorists or to drug cartel members or to criminals. You might have those in every room of your house to protect yourself from those very criminals. So until you've done something wrong, you have nothing to be accountable for. On the other hand, the Attorney General of these United States, Eric Holder, and even some of our local politicians, and certainly the compartmentalized politicians in New Mexico, in Columbus, New Mexico, where this operation flowed out of, where the police chief was in on it, where the mayor was in on it, they're all accountable for their actions. We, however, haven't done anything yet, and so I'm all for if people misuse their freedom, if they do something that affects someone else's life, liberty, or property according to the Constitution, then they should be accountable. And I see lots of members of our government that now have some serious splaining to do.
Okay, well, Chuck Norris, I don't know if you've ever read any of Chuck Norris' writings.
I have. He's a very staunch conservative.
He wrote in here, got me really thinking, that the illegal gun smuggling was allowed and encouraged in order to drive up the number of guns recovered in Mexico. That could be traced back to U.S. gun stores. Anyone interested in driving up those numbers could have only one reason: to justify new restrictions on our Second Amendment rights. And that's exactly what...
Well, that sounds like Chuck's weaving a conspiracy theory that I'm ready to buy into.
No,
because if you see how the government operates, it operates on something called cost-benefit analysis. That means that they're going to benefit down the list on a multitude of things. One, they're helping out these drug gangs because I believe they're in on the shipment of drugs into our country, because the DE, if you look into this, and I have an investigative reporter in Mexico that gives me a lot of this information and checks it out very thoroughly, that we'll see that the drug cartels are infiltrated to the hilt with DEA and CIA, and they have been long before, since Iran-Contra. So that's one level. They also are able to get people to give up others. So we've got informants in these drug cartels. You think of Whitey Bulger. You remember how Whitey Bulger was working for the mafia in Boston and in New England, but yet he was ratting out. The other guys. They can demonize gun owners. They can demonize gun shops, and it just seems to operate on so many different levels. And then there's the political, as Chuck Norris was getting to, kind of the political ramification, that it looks like they're actually doing something that they want to take credit for. Politicians love telling you how they're tough on crime, yet they don't seem to do anything but militarize the police and take more of our liberties away.
Well, that sure sounds like, once I read that from Chuck Norris, that made perfect sense, because I'd written about this earlier, and I explained to the people who read my blog that I couldn't understand what they thought they were doing. These kind of operations go good for, like, local narcotics officers, you know, your local PD. But something this massive, how in the hell were they going to track all these guns down? It didn't make any sense. I couldn't figure out what they were doing. And then I read Chuck Norris, and now it makes perfect sense.
Well, in the Salvador option, they have the field manual for the Salvador option, which again gets us back into false flag terrorism, something they call in Iraq P2OG. You can look that up. It's called Propaganda Do was the P2 Lodge. That's Propaganda 2. Preemptive, Proactive Operations Group is what it stands for, and it does, again, address the issue of being the terrorist and working with the terrorist in order to catch the terrorist. In El Salvador, they have the Salvador option, Pokey, and that said, if there are no terrorists, you've got to go out and pretend there are terrorists so that the people will be behind your military action, all the money that you're spending to do this, which of course now is a big issue as we're broke here in the United States, if you haven't heard that, folks.
Man, this is...
Who are Los Zetas? A lot of people don't know, and I think
I
want to be. That's right. These guys, very well done, Pokey. They are ex-military, ex-police. Many of them trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, in the School of America's, a school of assassins. And this is one of the jobs. This is one of the jobs that Los Zetas and the drug cartels do. Is they do political assassinations as well. In fact, Los Zetas is after Z1, which is a private code for the judicial police in Mexico.
Well, in Mexico, the police and the military have always been used for at least the last 60 or 70 years for...
You know that, and I know that. I'm not sure how many people on this side of the border pay attention or know that.
There's a lot of people on this side of the border got some kind of blinders on or something. We go to Mexico all the time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us, like myself, I'm just not very well versed pertaining to guns and
The
desire
political
to own or
ramifications,
operate. I've never handled one. I have no desire to do so. So it never occurred to me to think that it would be harmful for me not to be allowed to, because I never even conceived of even wanting to. But I see that as a very pressing issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed, and that we should absolutely have the right as a.
Well, we do have a Second Amendment right, last I checked, to keep and
There we
bear arms, and there's a reason why
Yes.
for all of this. You know, there's a town in Georgia called Kennesaw, Georgia, which you might have
There's
heard
no
of.
crime there at all.
It's mandatory that somebody in the home owns a firearm and knows how to use it, and that's right. They have very little to no crime there. In Mexico, I mean, you really got to feel for the citizens down there who have been disarmed, who are being run roughshod over by these alleged narco-terrorists with BATFE guns. You know, they have no way to defend themselves, and I've heard story after story of how these cartel members will go and go to a house that they want, that could be convenient for them to operate out of, tell the guy he has by sundown to get out, and the guy either has to fight it out with his illegal guns or he just has to leave. On this side of the border, I've had some very well-connected people tell me personally that these farms, these ranches are being bought out through intimidation and a lot of money.
I thought they were just taking them.
Well,
flat out.
they're coming with checks and going, here's twice as much as your land might be worth. But if that land's been in your family for 5 generations, you may not want to sell
longer in
it.
those
But you're going to
cases.
be intimidated to sell it. And the federal government or even our state government seem very lax in addressing any of these problems.
On this side of the border, you mean?
On this side of the border.
Yeah, you're right. On that side, they just take them. Yeah, but you're right. On this side of the border, we've always tried, me and Jesse always tried to point out, we're going down there, some of those people go back to, we went to a graveyard where Edgar Hernandez buried 1590. This is a long time in Texas. And you're right, these people, either take this double what it's worth or take this bullet. What are you going to do?
It's an offer you can't refuse, as we've said on the East Coast in the past. You know, if you want to go to this, and I do want to talk about my friend Cele Castillo, because we're launching an effort to get him out of prison. Again, he was put into prison. He had been monitoring the FBI as they were monitoring people at gun shows. He had talked about that openly and kind of blown their cover. And I thought that this was some kind of retribution. They set him up. He's a Bronze Star winner in Vietnam, a war hero. He was a superstar agent at the DEA, where he became a whistleblower when he saw
he wrote the book,
Colonel Oliver North and George Herbert Walker Bush involved in a conspiracy to smuggle cocaine over the American border to fund what?
To meet Arkansas,
to give guns.
favorite pilot.
To do what? To give guns to Iran. So here we are smuggling guns again, and we're back up to our old tricks. So Cele Castillo, this war hero, this great American and a good friend of mine, will be in jail this 20th of July for 2 years for selling a shotgun to an informant who then snitched on him, and he was set up for this. This isn't actually even illegal in Texas. This is the worst part of this. This is a federal gun crime, not a crime in Texas. So why? Well, he was grabbed by federal authorities, put through federal court, and now sits in a federal prison after 2 years. Now, as we talk about Operation Gun Runner or Gun Walker, they've also called it, or Fast and Furious, we now see this hypocrisy that I think calls for the immediate pardon of Cele Castillo. We've got a website, freecelecastillo.com. That's linked at my site, deadlinelive.info. And on the 20th, we're doing a couple of things. We're trying to get the resources for Cele so when he does come out, he's got something to look forward to and he won't be dead broke. And of course, we're trying to also raise awareness by having people call Rick Perry, our governor here, who oversees this mess, unfortunately, and Eric Holder and members of the Obama Justice Department and certainly our legislators. We need to start getting the ball moving in motion to free Cele Castillo immediately under this hypocritical under these hypocritical policies that the Obama administration and I should say the Bush administration participated in. So
Yes,
you
they did.
can't point the finger at a Cele Castillo if you yourself are doing the same thing. And 2 years, I think, is long enough. This is a guy that served his country in every capacity. He's getting on in years, and he's got a lot of health problems, and it's very tough on him to be in prison. He'll be in till, I believe, May 4th of next year if we can't get him out early. So I'd love for people to join us on July 20th using the information we're talking about on this show today. All over, wherever you live in the United States, wherever you live in the world, we're going to do this all online and really press the issue. If you go to freecelecastillo.com, we'll have instructions there for what you can do to help this great American. And I know, a lot of us, Pokey, we want to help these whistleblowers.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
before at the gun show.
Otherwise, why would another whistleblower want to come out if nobody gets their back, if no one will help them when they're in need? So this is a way for us to give back.
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard this guy, Jesus Diaz? He was a Border Patrol agent, and evidently he had somebody handcuffed, and they started giving him problems, so he simply lifted the handcuffs a little higher. And, and so he's in jail for that.
Yeah, well, I think
stuff
metaphorically our border agents are handcuffed to do anything about the violence and everything that we're seeing at the border. And I think, what we're beginning to find out is this really is the North American Union. It's not the United States. I think that the border and primarily even the sovereignty of this country to our leaders and to the international people that fund our leaders, it's an illusion to them. Well, to us, it still means something. If you look at the European Union, they had their 50th anniversary here a couple of years ago. Pokey, they didn't tell anybody about the American Union until 1987. You can do the math. They called the trade agreement, which we call NAFTA or GATT or now CAFTA, they called that a new country the second that it happened. So we have to understand maybe that's why they're not so zealous. That's why they're not trying hard enough. That's why they can't figure out what to do about our borders here. And we live in a border state, and it's a problem. Now, I got to say this, until we really seriously consider decriminalizing drugs or legalizing marijuana and these types of things, this is just going to keep feeding itself and keep going on and on and on. That is one of the solutions that very few people are brave enough to talk about. I think Ron Paul is one, and we have Gary Johnson running for president.
Here's the girl I was telling you about.
And some others that are really talking about the toll it takes on our society to have this prohibition on drugs.
Yes.
Yeah, this girl here, I rate her right underneath Stratfor. I don't know what you think about Stratfor. You know who Stratfor is, right?
A little bit. Tell me about it.
They're intelligence analysis type people.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know if I got them on here or not. But anyway, they're, I like them, but Alex Jones doesn't. And
well, then I probably like him too if he does.
yeah, well, this girl was talking about, here we go. Legalize, should pursue decriminalization instead, because we all know there's certain, at least for now, nobody's going to want to legalize these drugs. Even if you do legalize, it's not going to stop the problems.
Well, I don't know. You've
legalized and heroin and all this kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know. Look at the difference between prohibition on alcohol and then the difference from when the prohibition was lifted. Now, we know some of the people, some of those powerful people in this country, including the people that founded our old Skull and Bones, the Kennedy family and others, moved in not only alcohol, but they're still moving in opium, which is a whole nother issue in Afghanistan that we could tackle as well. So there was a difference. The Al Capones and these people had to move on to other illicit trades when that was taken away from them, and it was really hit them hard. It hit them in the pocketbook. And I think the same thing would happen today. You know, just because you legalize heroin doesn't mean we're all going to go out and do it. And if you want to do it, you simply go to your doctor and you say, I'd like to have some OxyContin, please, with some Vicodins on the side, and he'll give those all to you that you want.
So
we have legal drugs. Is it the problem that the street drugs and what you can grow in your backyard is competition for the pharmaceutical companies, much like you can't have a still in your house or grow marijuana in your backyard or even grow tobacco in many cases in your backyard, especially if you're giving it to people or selling it. So
Right.
they want to deal with our food, and they want to control our drugs, they want to control what we drink, and we've tracked and traced all of this and exposed it long enough. The only thing left is to lift the prohibition on drugs, and I'm telling you, you're going to see a lot of this violence go away.
Absolutely.
Then the violence will be from the state pointing a gun at you, wanting the taxes for the marijuana you're growing in your backyard for medical reasons.
Did you hear about this guy got busted for a student loan, and they sent in the SWAT team after him to make him pay a student loan?
That's right.
You know about that one? I can't believe
His
that.
whole family was in the house when they came in, and it was, I think, the woman's student loan or the
Your new
son's
teacher's
student
here.
loan. Yeah, that's the
With a
world we live
shotgun.
in. That's the world we
I
live in,
can't believe
Pokey.
that.
Wow.
Well, that was
Well,
that
look,
story.
and this is part of this whole TSA mess, I believe, is they're trying to find a way to profile and to rate us all, and credit will be part of that. Will you be on a no rent list or a no food list? You're already on all these no lists. And when you get that biometric ID card, which, by the way, if you're in a Mexican cartel or any cartel, you're going to find a way around that. What do they say? You build a smarter mousetrap, you get a smarter mouse.
Smarter mouse.
So not only is this biometric internal passport ID thing in this country an extraordinary amount of money that we can't afford, but it's not foolproof, and actually people will be able to steal your identity. But put all that aside, what's going to be on it? What kind of person you are? What's your history? Have you been arrested for drunken driving? Well, if you live in Austin, most likely you have, whether you drink or not, because that's the state of affairs that we have here. What kind of credit rating do you have? Have you gone to the wrong website? All that stuff can be now databased and part of you, your character, your straw man. And, if you don't go along and you're not a good slave, then you're going to have trouble accessing some of the wonderful things that are available still in this country. And just try it right now. If you don't have a good credit rating, go try to rent an apartment or a house and see, it's not as easy as it used to be, and in 10 years you won't be able to do it at all.
Yeah, I was out at City Hall Friday with community organizing, Acorn type people. That was really exciting stuff. Man, I need to get into, how do I get one of these damn jobs? Here the DOE, Department of Education, can kill you. They busted this guy in the middle of the night because he owed how much? Shotgun is June 7th at 6 a.m. in California. Well,
Did you see when Obama came in, the Department of Education purchased a large amount of shotguns and weaponry? I guess maybe that's why they did it. And the IRS has done the same thing. And, well, isn't it funny, these Tim Geithners and these guys in the Obama administration, that they don't pay their taxes, allegedly, and they keep getting caught for it. But we have to. And so what we are seeing, I believe, Pokey, is everything is coming to a head at this point. The many years of activism, the many years the truth has been circulating through things like the internet, which they're trying to regulate and put laws into to stop, again, the free flow of information. But these decades of activism for freedom, for liberty, for truth are finally beginning to seep in, not only to the American consciousness, but to the consciousness of the world and to the politicians. If you listen now to the Republicans, they all kind of sound like Ron Paul did in 2008 when they were castigating him for doing some of the things that they do now.
They're sure trying to pile on this Tea Party people on Sunday shows. All I heard was, well, are they going to drive you into the dirt or some kind of stuff? A community action network at City Hall. And they're complaining about how much money they're going to lose for these programs. They got some neat programs of all kinds.
They're putting people to work. I think I heard the stimulus is creating jobs at about 250,000 per job.
Indigenous Defense. Never heard of any of these programs. TDCJ, well, we know what that is. Academic and vocational training so you got to go to jail to get some decent education, I guess. Or until now, because it's down 44% from their state funding only. Reintegration of offenders for job search and placement through Texas. They get.
Is that the reason to keep this giant bureaucracy going, is we've got to keep all these people working?
Goes on and on and on.
Wow.
And it's like, my Lord, for a couple of hours we went on with it. Look at all this. All of it's different.
And when you get a vote for any kind of spending initiative in this town or any town, you'll see the people usually vote for it by a pretty good majority. They seem to vote for everything, and if it's a new racetrack or whatever it is, so they just never saw something they didn't want to buy. And we are like drunken sailors at this point. In my house, I use cash, Pokey. I don't use credit. I don't owe any money. I live within my means, and I may not be able to live like a Rockefeller, but it's a pretty good life, and I'm actually very grateful for it.
Well, I sure don't have any credit cards anymore. I got a debt card. If you don't have any money, you don't spend it.
There's
I
that.
don't know what, none of us here got any money, I guess.
Well, we're not rolling in it, but it's
No,
all right. As long as we
can-
use what we have wisely.
We can
we can
afford
Well, how
it.
much do we really need as a country, as people? You know, I'm
is
certainly
America,
not
more than
a
that.
communist. I think people that if they want to work hard and have a lot of stuff, that's okay. But to me, that stuff's a trap. I don't want to have to worry about the insurance on my boat and my plane and all of that. You know, I like a good vacation
They
every
want to
once
take
in a
it
while.
off from
And
you. Today it's
give me a
City
good
Hall.
steak every once in a
Yeah.
while or
Yes.
something, and
You
I don't
can
ask for
enjoy
that
it.
much.
Now, today, go ahead.
Oh, it's all
I was going to tell you about today at City Hall. I went to the mayor's committee on disability people, and Capital Metro was there. And I was glad to see some of the people gave Capital Metro a pretty hard time about they're so big. How do I get my disability card? Well, now I'm going to have to go back and do it all again in 2 years. They raised the fees, and they try to say, well, this is so we can improve service. And it just came out and told, no, it's not. It's raised the fees because you blew all your money on the stupid trade and all these other stupid boondoggles they got. So
And yet they're never accountable
they're
for
never
any of it.
accountable for any of it. And
Let's give them a raise. They've done such a great job screwing us all these years.
Yeah, and so now they're going to start, not my doctor to decide if I'm disabled enough to get disabled, but they'll decide. And so the one lady got up and told them, well, and I'm the same way. Some days I have pretty good days, and other days it ain't too shit. But so they're going to catch me on a good day and say, oh, you're okay. And then when I'm on a bad day, say, no, you got to walk.
Well, is it any wonder people
And then they're going
are...
to charge me more for it, and you.
Is it any wonder that people are sick of government now because they've been behaving like this for decades and decades, and we've just had enough of it. It's not that, we're anti-government, we're just anti-corruption, anti-waste, and pro-freedom. See, they always try to spin it, don't they, that we're anti-something. No, we're pro-freedom, we're pro-liberty, we're pro-peace, we're for these things, but in being for these things, we have to be against corruption and this open, bloated government that certainly has been preying on the people. Obama now is saying, well, he's going to raise taxes on the rich. But to him, and he's got millions of dollars now, but to him and to his people, rich means a combined income of $200,000 or even less sometimes in a household, which really is barely even middle class these days with the way prices and inflation is going out of control. So they don't tell you that they're going to tax the poor people. They don't tell you that they can't tax the rich people with either the super rich having these loopholes that they can't close even if they tell you they're going to, and that will pass that along to the consumer. So you make them pay more money. They don't take it out of their pocket and go, okay, they take it out of your pocket. They take it out of your pocket.
Raise the tax on the rich. All he's going to do is he's going to raise the price of whatever goods or services he's selling. You're going to pay for it.
And then they'll stop the flow of money. They'll stop people buying things. The economy will be even worse. But the point I was going to make is, why is he raising taxes? Because the IMF and the Federal Reserve told him to. It's time to raise taxes on your people, son. And that's what they say, and that's what he's got to do because he's a puppet and he works for them like any president. I'm not picking on Obama in particular. He's no different. We call him O'Bushes sometimes. There's almost no difference between these guys. Other than the Bushes, I thought, had things operating a little neater because they've had longer to be part of the establishment, where a lot of the Obama people don't, and they're a little more sloppy and incompetent, as we saw in the Clinton administration.
Even he looked good compared to this. Go ahead. that piece. I know you want to say something.
No, actually not. I'm learning a great deal right now, and I appreciate you being so verbal and expressive, Jack. Thank you.
I want to give people information, and that's why I do
Absolutely.
these shows. You know, we can laugh and joke, and I like that too, and I want people to be entertained and have a good time. But I want to make sure people are getting information. When we're talking about this Fast and Furious, when we're talking about Gun Runner, Operation Gun Runner, the BATF, the FBI, the DEA moving drugs into the hands of these people, you know, I just want somebody to be accountable, and we've seen Eric Holder lying about this. Is the media, is somebody going to hold these guys accountable, or this is going to keep happening over and over again? You know, I don't like reporting these stories because I just had to do this a couple of years ago, and I'll have to do it a couple of years from now. I feel like sometimes I'm spinning my wheels here, but I want something to be done, and I think that a lot of people out there, they're tired of this too. They're tired of the bickering, they're tired of the name calling, they're tired of the illusion given to us as liberty. They want action. They want things to change. They want things to be peaceful, and they want to have a chance to profit and to grow in an unfettered fashion and not have various bureaucracies on their butts. So, look, and this is why we don't like laws, is because they're selectively enforced. So while I can't buy a gun at a gun show or something, they're sending truckloads of guns down to people who are trained killers.
Right.
See,
in some
there's a
cases
problem with that.
Because so many of the Zetas have gone down, and they're not training up these young ones. What do they call them, Zetas or something? They're just young kids, 19, 20 years old, never had a gun, and they go in there and spraying up everything, killing anybody. That's all these
Even
kids
worse, untrained people.
Untrained, and they just.
So we did that in Afghanistan. We did it in Iraq. We did it in Pakistan. Now apparently we're doing it in Libya. We did it in Iran. We've done it in Central and South America for decades, and this is what we're getting for it. And I think that people finally are getting to a point where they see all of this is going on. It's time, you know, like that Seinfeld episode, right? You ever seen that? Do the opposite. It's time now to do the opposite. We've got the smartest men in the world running things. Let's get somebody dumb in there finally. Let's do something completely different, even if there's no guarantee it's going to work or there's not even a plan.
Yes.
We've got to do something different
I
here.
don't usually watch it too often. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, no, I was just going to say, if you continue doing the same thing over and over again and you don't see the results that you desire, that's lunacy. You have to do something different.
Elijah E. Cummings.
To quote Einstein,
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Cummings is the
But
chair.
I did want to ask.
The chair of the committee investigating this, and he's a Democrat, of course, and he's still, it dawned on me too, they're not going to take responsibility for this. They're still going to try and salvage gun control out of it.
Well, part of
now
what
he's
they're
blaming the NRA for it.
Yeah, and part of what they're saying is they set up these straw man buys. Don't believe that, folks. That's all they're saying. There's no actual proof that this was even a sting to catch people. We don't even know. This could have been something much greater, kind of a quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Here's the guns. Now get these drugs up here. Because what we saw during the financial meltdown, the economic 9/11 of 2008, is that a lot of the banks, Pokey, were propped up through this drug money that nobody was asking any questions about. You remember BCCI?
Yeah, banks of crooks and criminals.
International. Yeah. And the Kerry Commission, John Kerry was supposed to be looking into that, and we never got really anything out of it other than Riggs Bank has gone on to form, which was part of BCCI, went on. These guys are laundering money for international drug cartels. They run Politico.com now, which is the opinion maker on the mainstream media. So these guys changed their names a lot, and they continue to go on. But that drug money propped up these banks. If they didn't have that liquidity, there might have been even a bigger bailout wanted from us.
I read a nasty story about that, telling that it's not as bad as Wachovia was really into it. You see, the Mexicans busted a jetliner full of cocaine. Well, the jetliner was purchased through money from a check from Wachovia here in U.S. South Carolina or something like that, I guess. But anyway. And so people like Jack and others have gone on to condemn the whole banking system out of it. And I told them, no,
I'm not condemning anyone. I'm merely
This
stating
guy-
a
this
fact
guy's
that
a
they need the
heavy-duty
drug
military.
money to keep themselves propped up. If you look at the biggest money makers for the elite, other than the printing of money and lending of money, the ones and zeros in the computers, and I'm talking about investment banks more than your banker on the corner, certainly not your credit union and a non-Fed member bank. But the biggest money makers for the elite internationalists are drugs, guns, and sex trafficking. This is where they make their money. This is why when we went into Afghanistan, the poppies, the heroin crops, didn't get smaller or go away. They got much bigger. And with all of our sophisticated satellites and imaging and surveillance, you're telling me that they couldn't stop that somehow? They let it keep going because it's helping a drug lord, or it's helping a warlord that's helping them, and he's keeping people peaceful in that area. And this kind of, looking the other way thing that has been going on now for decades and decades, it's completely backfired. The unintended consequences are more wars, more aggression, and more money we have to spend to police the world. And so these policies have failed. The jury is in. Forget Casey Anthony and all of that and Tot Mom. The jury is in. These drug policies, the war policies, and the weapon policies do not work. And something has to be done to stop it, and stop it now. And watch how much money we save. If you, that's adding to it. If we go back to an honest money system in this country,
Well, that'll help.
we'll have it. I mean, we will have health care. We will have everything that the people want. So we are stuck in this little maze looking for the cheese. And when we get there, it's not even cheese. It's styrofoam.
It's chemical induced.
It's genetically modified styrofoam.
Mike Whitney, he wrote the
He's a good
article
writer,
you're talking about. He says in here, every major bank in the U.S. has served as an active financial partner of the murderous drug cartels. And I just don't think so. Of course, that's a heavy libertarian
It's not every
slant.
bank. It's
what
certainly
he said. That's a quote.
the big ones. All the big ones have to get in it, because usually what's going to happen is the other guy's into it. And he's doing
he
better
wants to
than you, and
compete.
you got to compete with him. So open your door and launder some cash. I mean, we remember, again, what happened in the 80s in Florida with
a lot of people don't
the
understand
cocaine.
what laundering cash is. It's not like some dope dealers walking into the bank with lots of suitcases full of money. That's in the old days. Now it's these like these check cashing stores around town, and they got tons of them in Mexico. And you can, like this debt card I wrote about it. You can load that debt card with cash. You go to the check cash place, give them $1,000. You put it on that credit card. Take that credit card into your bank and open a bank account. Now you just put $1,000 in the bank.
Right.
How high can you go before somebody notices? I don't know.
And see, one of the things that the Treasury put out their blueprint after the economic crisis here a few years ago, and one of the things they thought would be a good solution is to get rid of credit unions and get rid of non-Federal Reserve member banks. Charter banks only. So again, these are guys that don't like competition, and they're going to use every advantage they can. And this, what was it that Rambo Emanuel said? Never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's how it is. Now, if you create the crisis in the Hegelian dialectic, it means you create the problem, you use your bought and paid for state media to stem the reaction that you want. For instance, gun shows must be closed down, la la la. Then you provide the solution that you wanted all along for the problem you yourself created. And that's what the war on terror is. That's what the war on drugs is. Certainly that's what the economic situation comes down to as well. Now, we're lucky that we have the dollar as the world reserve currency. Not going to be much longer, Pokey, before they move to a global currency, which most likely will be electronic, on your cell phone. Won't that be more convenient for you? That's right. Even Monopoly now has gone electronic with electronic money, and that's the future. So they can shut off your money anytime you want. You can't hide electronic money in your backyard. You can't hide it under your mattress. You know.
I can't hide it from my wife.
Yeah, right. Well, there's that.
The prepaid card industry is regarded as the third wave in electronic personal payments, following credit cards and traditional debt cards, according to the AITE group, whatever that is. Card-based electronic payments totaled $3 trillion in 2006, with credit and debt card purchases totaling $2 trillion and $1 trillion respectively. Within the electronic payment card market, debt products are growing significantly faster than credit products, with growth from 04 to 09 estimated to be 16.5% of debt versus 11.7% growth of credit. Growth of prepaid cards has accelerated significantly, with the transaction value estimated at $178 billion in 10.
They're doing this. Now there's a program in Salt Lake City called ISIS.
That's probably going to be next.
You know how these guys love their gods and their goddesses? They named this electronic money trial system ISIS.
Is this the name of a movie or something? Yeah.
Isis the goddess, which is also Diana and Columbia, and they have all these different names. You'll see it everywhere. But so what happens when you're all electronic? If I run the money, can I just put in money and just say I have $1 trillion? Can I just do that? Well, that's exactly what's happening now with the Federal Reserve printing the money, and that's why our money today is worth 99% less than it was in 1913. We've lost 99 cents on the dollar, and we've lost 30% of our dollar, our buying power, in just the last 10 years alone.
Let me tell you
I go to
an
inflation calculator, and so people don't notice. This is the poor tax. This is the tax that's getting people that no one talks about, and yet we're not making 30% more than we did 10 years ago. I don't know too many people that are.
Let me tell you this quick story about that. A $20 gold piece, U.S. $20 gold piece, 1920, would buy the same thing in 1920 it'll buy today. That same gold piece. Back then it was $20 to get a real nice suit. Take your old lady to a real nice restaurant, go see a show, and have a little change left over. You take that exact same gold piece out there today, you can do the same thing.
You might even get more for it today because of the rush on gold and silver.
How much an ounce now?
$1,500 plus an ounce. Yeah,
back then it was $20.
I told people to buy it at $1,100, and they were looking at me like I was crazy.
I remember it was $300 or $400.
You just got 30. You just got 30% more money. Other than having it in dollar bills, 30% less money. If you put it into Wall Street, they could take it for you at any time in that casino they have operating over there. And so if you put it in a house, they can just say, well, your property is now worth half what it was. This cartel capitalism has just stymied the free market, so that's a whole other issue. But I think all these things go together, Pokey. I don't want people to think we're kind of all over the road here, because I think we've kind of made a really nice circle from the drug war to the war on terror to the economic war on the people.
Well, yeah, that's good, Jack, because I always have such a hard time trying to link these places up.
Hello, Mr. Jack Boy.
Hey!
Yeah, come on in there, Mr. Hanson.
This guy's one of my heroes right here,
my hero.
Mike
Hanson.
Hanson.
Mike.
How you doing?
You know peace?
Yeah, how you doing, Mike Hanson?
Hello, good to meet you.
I just want to let y'all know
Talk
that
about a long time.
coming up next.
Text Mars next.
At 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
You got to switch channels, though.
To 16?
16 after your show.
Yeah.
You got to switch channels to 16. Text Mars is going to be on.
With Jeff Davis.
Jeff Davis.
Grand
Never miss it.
all of us.
You know I've been directing his show for the last
I kind of heard that, yeah. Well, that's why I like it. So you guys got to watch Jeff Davis out there. He's an institution, a national treasure in the Republic of Texas.
And Tex Mars is coming on.
And I'm his head groupie.
Oh, you always have been.
I've always been
you
I'm
always
his biggest groupie.
We did Jeff Davis when he ran for Congress in the Libertarian
Man right
ticket one
there.
day.
Hey, let me tell you a funny story.
Yeah, well, this stuff up. Okay, tell you the funny story first.
I was flying in from Atlanta here just a couple of days ago, and we're on the plane, and the pilot comes on, and he says, well, it should be about 2 hours before you're in the Republic of Texas. And then he goes, well, I think we all wish it was the Republic of Texas. So when you've got the airline pilots and mom and pops and soccer moms talking like that, a huge universal change is happening in this country. And the Sorosians, as you might call them, the people that hate this country and hate our sovereignty and our freedoms, are planning what you're seeing, I think, now in Egypt and in Greece. They want to have these big austerity riots here. They want to turn us against each other. Folks, stay together. Help each other. Help your neighbors and your community.
Is how this all ties in. I know they do want to balkanize us, so to speak. That's why in some of these places you can feel the racial tension. And they want to build this up a lot. to get
racial,
each other.
economic. You know,
Class
your
warfare.
hair is different than my hair. Your car is different than my car. I'm a Baptist, but you're the wrong kind of Baptist. I mean, this is what we
But
constantly
now they
hear.
can do it easily on things like race.
But if we're all together for something like honest money, if we're all together for something like freedom, I always say this: freedom is the answer. I don't care what the question. Ask me any question, I will give you the answer to what makes us all, you, me, everybody, the most free. And that isn't something that you can interpret or you can construe. I call myself a ninether brother. That means I have individual liberty. That's even before having state sovereignty and state liberty. And they can't construe it. They do, but they're not supposed to. And I think accountability will be coming, and that's what we've been talking about tonight on the show. Thank you so much for having me on
I'm glad you
to
could
bring
come,
that up
and,
to people.
I really do like it because I could never quite tie it all in. It's like a vicious circle, and it's hard to explain how you see it that way.
Well, 200 years ago, they had opium wars, and the elites were running opium. 100 years ago, they were running alcohol.
1850s,
Now they're running
1860s, yeah.
cocaine and crack into our neighborhoods. You know, it just doesn't change. It really, and the same people do benefit all the time from it, and the same people get hurt by it all the time. So, look, if we don't have to be afraid.
Feeds the
If
rich
you
and
don't want to
buries the
end up
poor.
like Mexico, and I'm not saying anything bad about them because it's been a terrible time for them, but we will end up like Mexico. We'll be Mexico if we don't stand up, and then where are we going to go? To Canada?
Right.
Where are we going to go?
Right.
Now, I've always said that too. America is mankind's first and last best hope when it comes to freedom. We were the first when the history of world revolution was written. It starts in 1776, and it's going to end whenever we
Yeah,
end.
we've just been a terrible example, and I take responsibility for that. I've done everything I can to try to be a good example for the rest of the world. You know, if you get into these kind of teocon, I call them, that's the wing of the Tea Party that's very pro-war, and they're like neocons, so we call them teocons, and a lot of them are very Christian and religious. And they have been taught that everybody in the Middle East wants to kill us. Well, the truth is,
no,
the
they
truth
don't.
is not that. The truth is in Iran, our big new enemy here recently, that we overthrew in 1953 with the CIA, that's well known now, Operation Ajax. Most of the kids in Iran love Western culture. They want to be us. And if we quit demonizing their leader, which gives him more power and makes him look stronger,
Well, they have their
and
own
tried
political
to just be
They're
a little more
divergent.
diplomatic in this, they would rise up and take over that country, and we would no longer have them as a
They've had
threat.
riots over there. Yeah. It's crazy, but then on the other, I'm kind of one of those kind too. They knocked this legislation. We're steady making progress. We didn't get everything we wanted, and they're saying we had a super majority. Why didn't we get all this stuff? Say no, but we did make progress. We've been making progress now for a long time. We're going in the right direction.
Well, here's a question. When President Paul legalizes drugs and stops the
not
phony
gonna stop
drug
any
war, just hypothetically, do we let all the pot smokers out of prison?
Yeah.
Can these guys just be walking out the door in the greatest release of political prisoners in the history of the world? You know, we jail more people in this country
Than any
per
other
capita
country
than
on earth.
even including China or Russia or anyone else. So these changes are coming, and I think, now that we're close, let's focus in like a laser beam. Let's redouble our efforts. And there's groups here in Texas like Texans for Accountable Government and others that are just doing great work. They're great activists, and they just need a little of your help. So
Well, you see what I'm
out
hearing
there
there.
can go and feel good that you're doing something for your kids and for your neighbors as well, and to be a good example and to stand up for liberty in this country.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we got about 5 minutes left.
FreeCeleCastillo.com. Again, you can go to my website, deadlinelive.info. We've got, speaking of this border violence and border issues, we've got exclusive original content reporting at deadlinelive.info. If you want to know what's going on down there,
Well,
that's
look up-
one of the best places to go. It's
look up
my
this
site,
guy.
but I believe that too.
Look up this guy. He just got thrown in jail for using his handcuffs. It's really sad.
So it's like a Ramos and Campion
Yeah.
story, kind of.
Kind of about the same thing.
Well, they're handcuffed. It's our agents that are handcuffed, and
We got
I don't
plenty
want
of-
I don't want it to be a police state, but we do have to protect our borders. This is exactly what Mexico does with their neighbors. Let's all go to Mexico tomorrow, and let's not have any ID, and maybe let's open up a business or something. No one will say anything, right? Everything will be fine. You have to have your papers down there, and you can't have you can't have firearms. So we are going to turn into Mexico, but. Go to deadlinelive.info, Pokey. You guys keep going over there. We have exclusive reports coming out.
I'll have to link
My
that with
investigative reporter, Super Mario, has been working with me now for 7 or 8 years. He's got all the peripheral information, so when he researches a story that's written in a different language from the other newspapers that we don't see over here, he can put it all together for you in about a half a page. And these stories have just been going viral all over the internet, Pokey, which is probably why you gave me a call and why I got in here today.
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of things. I got my own border section too. You know, we go down there quite often. We'll be going again. The only people, and I know I like to read too, the papers from Mexico and from all over the world. See, I read the Small Wars Journal, and it's really, you get a different.
Well, I think we've done
Different look at things.
some good work here tonight. Now, there have been a few killings that have been blamed on Americans and Mexicans that we think were military killings and assassinations. I'd like Dan Patrick or some of these guys to look into it. You know, Dan Patrick, I called your office with information, you know, that would have been useful to you to solve this problem. Why didn't you call me back? Why aren't you looking into this stuff? These guys seem to brush everything under the carpet, and I don't know how many of them are on the take. If we're going to turn into Mexico, most of the leaders there are on the take. Calderon married up as soon as he came in with Los Zetas, and that's exactly what my friend Cele Castillo predicted would happen, which is another reason he's in federal prison. So if we don't want to turn into a Mexico or a banana republic or a third world country or an Afghanistan or a Pakistan. I know some people out there think it's impossible, but it's not impossible, especially here on a border state. The violence could be ratcheted up to a point to where, you know, federal guards have to come in and they turn this into a martial law situation. So we've got to get a hold of our trusted public servants, as we call them, and they are our servants, and force them to handle this situation. I'd just like to start to see right now, Eric Holder needs to resign and be accountable for this. It's his Justice Department. Heads need to roll. And as Bill Hicks once said, the BATFE for what they did at Waco should have committed Harry Carey. I think that would be the nice and respectful way out to save face. Take some hints from our Japanese friends out there. These guys are useless, as is the drug czars, as are half of the alphabet agencies that we have, about 30 of them in this country, that do nothing but stir up trouble, man.
Here's the one I think you might be talking about. They're starting to you're going to inevitably wind up with these right-wing death squads. Oh, we're about to go off. We'll be back next week. Marilyn Jackson, week after that. Well, anyway.
Nice meeting you.